Moving on that. Chris, Village of St. Joe, which is in Government Lot 10, just downstream of Farrell, across the river from St. Joe City, got vacated by the original platter in 1924, the lady that platted it, owned by somebody. But the streets never got vacated, so they're all out there. So we're trying to get rid of the streets so that the Huddlestons and the Sims and the Eichelbergs that have been acting like since Gardner, Cromwell in 24 wrote on the plat, the plat was vacated, the county and everyone's been treating it as if it was.
That's across the river from St. Joe City,
Yep,
on the flats out there.
right on the flats, just downstream from Farrell. It's on the downstream side of the St. Joe River. Part of it. Yeah, St. Joe City. So we're just trying to vacate it, get rid of the streets. This has nothing to do with it, it's something that we
Okay,
This still leaves county roads intact though.
Yeah, the county roads are intact. They haven't been treated as county roads. They've been taxed and everything. The recorder at the time when Elma, the lady that platted it, dedicated the streets to the public. And then she came back, she platted it in '07, I think, and then came back in '24 and said, no, I don't want a subdivision here. So she, in effect, got rid of all the lots within the blocks, because she could do that, she still owned them. But the streets were still there because the public already had them. And then the recorder at that time said, this plat is hereby vacated, null and void. It's not really correct. So everyone's been treating it as if the streets have never been there.
Remember, when I was a kid, I used to go like that to get into,
That's because you're still coming through Farrell.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of ground between the St. Joe City Road over to Farrell, across the plat of Farrell, owned by the Farrells, just to make it more confusing, till you get to the section line. Then once you get to the section line, you're into the plat of the Village of St. Joe. So we could, that's acceptable when you set a public hearing date?
So commissioners, legal counsel, we haven't reviewed the application page by page, but it looks like it should be considered to be complete for purposes today. Talked to Dee Dee, calculated the time, we've got a 30-day notice period, written notice, because this is unincorporated land under the jurisdiction of the county. So the earliest date we could have for a public hearing would be May 20th, which is your second meeting in May. And if that's acceptable to the applicant and to Mr. Ronaldo, we would ask the county to set it unless you want it later in the summer.
okay.
So we ask for a motion to set this for public hearing.
Also move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Normally you do your hearings, what time do you want to do the hearing? Just so that you know.
You can do it.
Let me make sure what I've got.
Just let me know if you would.
Okay.
need to know.
Probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock at work.
That's what I'm leaning towards too, but, so actually, May 28th is my meeting in May. Of 2019, so I don't have a,
So that would be probably Memorial Day. I was looking at that.
yeah,
wrong.
so Memorial Day falls on Monday, so it is a Tuesday on the 28th. So I have the 13th and the 28th.
Well, it'd have to be the 28th.
I really don't want to do Memorial Day. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I looked at the wrong, okay, sorry. Yeah, it would have to be Tuesday, the 28th
Okay.
then.
The 28th and at 10? Does that work?
Yep.
10 a.m.?
10 a.m.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry. I thought I was so efficient this morning.
You are very,
I was counting.
8 days efficient. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're under public comment. Anybody got any public comments?
Rochelle.
No, I don't. I just kind of showing up to see what's going on.
Nope.
Have we,
for asking.
is the accountant here?
I can go check. I haven't seen him walk by, but he might be.
If not, we can use Lynn.
Lynn? Okay.
things out your way, Wayne?
Wet, muddy. This guy's taking care of the road out there terrible. Oh, they can't do anything, I know. Yeah, it's, one of these days will dry up.
My driveway is about a 200-yard sponge when you
Yeah,
drive
same
through.
here.
This first year's ever been that bad.
Next thing we'll be hearing about Phil's the dust.
Yeah. And that's something we need to figure out is how much chloride we need all year too.
We're gonna need to do that, that's under that Clean Air Act that we're struggling with right now.
Yeah.
That was brought up too. I don't know how we could have pollution in St. Mary's, Idaho.
Usually been going on, Woolly Highway District's bid, and that was,
I don't see Tony yet, but it's
Hope you guys don't turn into Latah County about putting a little fire, the neighbors turning in everybody.
You do.
Bigger,
That's
our
all good.
neighbors kind of whining about air quality.
You're on, honey.
Great. I am back again with our 2018 SHSP grant, and it is a grant for interoperable communications having to do with Homeland Security, I guess preparedness and response. So I have five entities that submitted applications for communications equipment, and I think you looked at last week's, or 2 weeks ago, request. St. Mary's Ambulance is asking for new radios because their batteries and their backup batteries won't hold a charge anymore, so they need upgrading. Benoit County Coroner is searching for radios to be installed in their removal vehicles, and St. Mary's Fire Protection District is looking for installing dispatching hardware and software to establish countywide page-out systems. So I guess this software will go over to dispatch, and they can kind of page out everybody and all the fire in the county, rather than, I don't know, having to go from district to district. Then Benoit County Sheriff's Office also seeking 4 mobile radios for patrol vehicles and vessels. I think he wants to equip one of their marine patrol boats with radios. And then the tribe had also asked for help with installation of in-car repeaters, but found out since that those in-car repeaters are 700 megahertz, which will facilitate their communications with Kootenai County, but it will not facilitate their communication with Benoit County first responders. So, and I understand they're getting some other funding for those repeaters as well. They're in-car repeaters. So,
when is the deadline on this grant?
we have to spend the money by August 2018.
Okay. But to apply for it, when is the deadline, or is it already?
We had kind of, for the entities to apply for it, you mean?
Yeah.
We had kind of a soft deadline of January 15th.
Soft.
Yeah, like, we put out January 15th. It's not really, the Idaho Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, they don't set a deadline. It's kind of just our deadline. So I had asked for responses by January 15th.
Okay.
I had one that was a little bit later, but wasn't ready to proceed.
And there was a limit on how much you could apply for then?
There's a limit on how much we get.
Okay.
Each entity can apply for whatever they want, and then we decide, you guys decide out of that how much you'll award.
Yeah.
So they had submitted estimates for these amounts that I put on this letter.
Yeah. I talked to the sheriff this morning a little bit, and at our last meeting, Tony came down and submitted a proposal for some new vehicles,
Okay.
but it was more money than he had budgeted. So I told him maybe he should look and see if he can apply for some more grant money for this emergency communication equipment. and that would free up some money from his communications budget to apply to new vehicles.
Do they have a communications budget?
I don't know if they do or not.
I sort of think they don't, but that's a good question.
But I was trying to see if we get enough money for the sheriff's department that would cover the cost of what the shortfall they have on their vehicles budget. If it would help offset the cost of their vehicle budget. And so I told him to maybe talk, he was gonna talk to you about it.
Okay. Okay.
So if we put this off till next meeting, would that be a problem?
I don't think it, no, I don't think it will be a problem.
But it's
I know
something,
that-
this is something we could look into.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I know that this money, though, can't go towards vehicles. It has to go towards.
understand.
Yeah, okay. Just, yeah.
But
So,
if we
yeah, I
could
see
put
what
it
you're saying.
towards, if we could put something
Some
in
of
there
those. Mhm.
for communications that
Mhm.
we're gonna have to spend on anyway, then he could transfer from one part of his budget to another internally.
Right.
And it would free up some money for him to go ahead and purchase those vehicles without coming back to the commissioners and impacting the rest of the county budget.
Okay.
Because the sheriff's budget is pretty much at maximum levy right now.
Okay.
So I was trying to help his budget out.
Right. So in that, if that was the case, then,
Be it
Some of these-
communications.
yeah, but some of these other entities then probably would have to not get funded as much if you were gonna
Yeah.
give more to the sheriff's department, I guess. Okay.
Well,
But yeah, we can
I know the
certainly wait.
Stingrays ambulance is asking for quite a bit, but I do know they have quite a bit of money in reserve also.
Okay.
So, and the sheriff's office is pretty much spent for cash.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Um, Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question to Lynn? I'd like to make a comment
Go
about the
ahead.
sheriff. Yeah, I happen to know, and you probably know, Phil, that there's a really big dead zone up to St. Joe, going towards Montana. And I know the sheriff, they don't have equipment for that, they need repeaters. They need they really need a lot of equipment for good fire communications. And the question I wanted to ask you, is there any money allotted to secure the repeater on Mount Baldy? That has been a serious issue where anybody could just go up there and easily just pilfer it and cause problems, and we wouldn't have any of that communication that goes clear into Spokane. So that repeater needs to be.
I don't think we ever had anybody vandalize it that I.
No, but it's easy, you just can drive up there, and I think it was the fire chief, I think in Alvarado, said a person could just, he drove up there and looked at it, and said you could just go up there and just pull out a section that there would be absolutely no
I think you can do that
communications.
with about any repeater around the whole United States.
Pardon?
You can probably do that with about any repeater around the whole
Well, there's no
United
gate or
States.
anything, I was just
Yeah.
saying, it might be nice to have a little bit of, at least eyes up there, maybe some electronic visual, I'm
There
just
is a
saying.
camera up there. There are cameras.
Maybe they put that in place good, but that's not really protected, and that's our only communication to go into Spokane and up towards Montana when we have a big fire. So that's all. The sheriff knows more about it.
Okay, so that's something, that might be a good project for future grants, for this grant, so
Mhm.
have to, discuss that with the sheriff's office.
Thank you,
Okay,
Lynn.
thank you.
Who's the guy who worked at
Thank
Coeur
you.
d'Alene?
What?
What's the guy's name on Coeur d'Alene?
Jay?
Oh, yeah,
Jay
Jay.
Baker?
Jay Baker.
Yeah.
Jay Baker.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Need a motion?
Oh, yeah, do you need a motion? Did they?
Do I need it? Or do they need it? I don't know.
Says action on,
Well, we're,
I'll give it a motion.
Lynn was gonna look into the sheriff's idea, and we don't need to make a motion until next week, do we?
I think so.
Yeah.
Table this one.
You don't need a motion to go forward with this?
Not right now.
Right, not right now.
I don't think so, because I haven't
No.
decided to
Okay.
distribute any.
All right.
So just
So-
table it.
Yeah. I think
Am I up?
You are up.
All right. Good morning. Gosh, we're gonna go through today. Morning.
Exciting reading.
Exactly. Okay. I was up here in February to do the field work, and it was just like this, except for a giant snowstorm. So I guess it's either snowing or raining up here when I show up. Good morning. My name's Tony Masson. I'm the county auditor. Before we dive into the financial statements for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2018, I had one item this is a required communication that I'm required to give the board. It just talks about the new accounting standards that were implemented this year. There are 5 new accounting standards, none of them had.
Do you have that with you?
I did.
Well, do you have it, file here at all?
No, I'm gonna give it to Dee Dee.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. There's 5 new accounting standards that were implemented this year. None of them really had much of an effect on the county's financials. It also talks about that I didn't have any disagreements with management. Both Dee Dee and Sarah were real easy to work with and got me everything I needed again this year. So I wanted to take a second and say thank you on that. So I'll give that to you for.
Thank you.
So when we were able to issue a clean opinion this year again, which means that we believe the financial statements are fairly presented. There's 2 packages in front of you. The thicker one's going to be the actual financial statements. The smaller one's the graphs. We're going to spend most of the time going through the graphs today. But if you could open to the first tab of the financials, it's the bottom tab. So when you look at your financial statements,
This tab?
bottom.
Or this tab?
Yep. When you look at your financial statements, you really have them presented 2 different ways. What you're looking at on this tab is the statement of net position, which presents the county as if it's a private enterprise. So what does that mean? It means your fixed assets are going to be capitalized and depreciated rather than expensed like you do on your fund financials. And then any of your long-term debt's also going to be shown on this sheet. So if you look at the columns on the far right-hand column is actually the hospital's financial information. One column in is the total of the county. So if you look at the bottom, you can see that your total net position was just under $11 million. That's effectively the equity in the county. That was up about $800,000 from the prior year. So from a private enterprise perspective, the county increased your equity and had a good year. The other thing I always like to do is talk about one of the liabilities that you see on these financial statements, and it's kind of right next to the tab. It's the net pension liability. So we've talked about this every year, beginning in 2015. If any unfunded percentage of PERSI is a theoretical liability to the county, and that is now recorded onto your financial statements. So PERSI is 91.69% funded, which is up about 1%, which is great. PERSI's always been, anything over an 80% funded plan is considered to be a well-funded plan. PERSI has been between as low as 87 and as high as 95, but they ended their last fiscal year at just under 92%. What that actually means in your financial statements is that the net pension liability that you're recognizing on your financials is $1,087,000, which is roughly the same as it was last year. So, any questions about that?
No.
Okay. So the second tab, just a brief overview of what this is. This is your income statement for your fund financials. So this is going to be how you guys budget and see your expenses on an everyday basis. Just to kind of give you a rundown, the far left column, the first is your general fund, followed by the justice, the road, your bond fund. What these are your major funds. So this is going to give you a summary of turn back one page.
Yeah.
Sorry, there you go. Apologize.
It's all stuck together.
So what this is this is gonna give you an income statement for all of your funds, starting with your major funds. So the funds that the GASB standards require us to line out are there. And that last column called aggregate remaining or non-major has all your other funds all combined into one. So that's one column in from the right. Just to kind of give you a sense of how those financials look. What I'm gonna do is we're gonna look at a couple funds today, general, justice, and road fund, and just kind of give you a sense of where those are at. So if we can transfer over to the graphs, which is in the second package. The beginning of this package here has a narrative. I've basically written a summary of the things we're going to talk about today. So if you want to go back and read the summary, you'll have a sense of where we're at. But we're going to flip to the first graph that you can see. Should be 2 or 3 pages in there. One more, there we go. So what we're looking at here is the summary of the operations of your current expense or your general fund. You guys began the year with a fund balance of $448,000. You have revenues of $1,689,000, expenses of $1,564,000, and you ended the year with a fund balance of $573,000. Your general fund increased its fund balance by just over $125,000 last year. One thing I always like to point out is ending fund balance doesn't mean available cash. It's just all your assets minus your liabilities. Your available cash, which would be your actual cash minus any warrants payable, was sitting at $509,000, which is up about $196,000 year over year. So your cash position is a little bit less than your fund balance.
It was plus 196,000.
196,000 year over year. If we look how your revenue and expenses have been the last few years, your revenues have exceeded your expenditures for current expense in 5 of the last 7 years. If you look at this graph, the bottom one, fiscal year 2012, you can see the revenues and expenses are quite a bit larger than what you have since then. That was the last year before the Justice Fund was broken out into its own fund, so that's why that fiscal year 12 was so high. But it kind of can give you a sense of where you guys have been over the last 7 years. If we look how your ending fund balance has been on the next graph, what I've done here is given you a 2-month and a 5-month expenditure range, basically, or fund balance range. And what that is it's the basic best practice is to consider a minimum fund balance of at least 2 months, and then to adjust for your individual needs. So we have the 2-month line. 5-month line I tend to show simply because you need to make it through October, November, and December before you get your tax revenue that come in. So that's why I've chosen the 2 and the 5-month range as a comparison. You can see that your fund balance, you ended the year at the 573, which is effectively 4.4 months worth of operating expenses that you had in your fund balance, which is a good spot. That was up about 0.5 of a month from the prior year. And your fund balances actually went up about $329,000 since it split off, the Justice Fund split off from current expense. So as you can see, since 2014, you guys have been really maintaining that, right in that range there. So, if we look at your revenues a little bit more in depth for the general fund, again, your total revenues were $1,689,000. That was up about 6% year over year. But you can see here that obviously your taxes make up about 76% of your total revenue. And that was basically flat. It was up $9,000 year over year. You guys in fiscal year 17 effectively hit your levy rate cap in current expense. So your ability to levy any more other than just property value increases sort of capped out in 17, so in 18. That's why we have that small increase. Your intergovernmental revenue makes up 14%. That was of all your revenues. So you can see your taxes and intergovernmental revenue make up in total about 90% of the general fund's expenditure. Your intergovernmental revenue is basically your quarterly state sharing money that you're gonna get. So your sales tax, your liquor, cigarette tax, those types of things are in that number. But primarily you had an increase of $68,000 in your intergovernmental revenue this last year. A little bit of increase in your tax, and your charges for services, licensing permits, and other expenses were relatively the same. If we were to look at your expenditures, total expenditures last year were $1,564,000. That was up about $172,000 year over year. Primarily that increase came in your general government expenses, which were up about $316,000. If you look at it a little bit further, its payroll and benefits were up about $280,000 in current expense last year. That's primarily the difference from year over year. The other expense that you have up there for the $80,000, kind of at the top there, that was actually your transfer. So that was your 5% of current expense. You transferred $80,000 to your general reserve. So you do have that general reserve where you transferred some of the excess, and that's what that $80,000 transfer is there. Moving on to the Justice Fund. For 2018, you started the year with a fund balance of $452,000. You had revenues of $2,044,000, expenses of $2,078,000, and you ended the year with a fund balance of $419,000. So the Justice Fund reduced its fund balance by about $33,000. In terms of available cash, your available cash in the fund was $352,000. And that was down about $36,000 year over year. So effectively, your decrease in your fund balance was your decrease in your available cash in that fund. If we look at your revenue and expenses a little bit closer, you can see for fiscal year 18, both revenue and expenses were just slightly lower than they were in the prior year. With that said, your revenues have exceeded your expenditures in 4 of the last 7 years. And since the establishment of the Justice Fund, you've increased your fund balance $419,000. For 2018, primarily the revenue decrease was really a function of transfers. Fiscal year 17, you had transferred some additional monies into this fund, which didn't need to happen this year. That's why the revenues were down a little bit. On the expense side, there was a slight reduction in your payroll and benefits. Other than those two things, your Justice Fund is real similar to where it was the year before. If we look at your fund balance here again, we can see the 2 and the 5 month line. You guys are within that range. You actually ended the year with 2.4 months worth of operating expenditures. That was down slightly from the year before, but not much. When it comes to your tax levy, you guys are again at your max levy rate for the Justice Fund. So any additional revenues that you guys may need are going to need to come from increases in property taxes or a reallocation of your intergovernmental revenue, your state sharing money there. But
Now,
again,
the money we get last year, so the Sheriff's Office took over law enforcement for the city of St. Mary's, and that's included in this Justice Fund here too, then?
it is.
Okay.
Yep.
So without that, our Justice Fund would have been quite a bit lower then.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the dollar amount of that, how much
I
it
don't
was
know, it's-
billed, but yes, it is in here, so had that not been in there, you guys would have had a larger loss than the $33,000.
Gotta make sure it all shakes out, so we're not going in a hole too far.
Right. Well, again, I mean, when you look at the Justice Fund, you've been above that 2 month requirement for the last 3 years, but again, you're just right there at that 2 month. you're not in a spot where you're gonna have any cash flow issues when it comes to the justice fund, but again, it's just a function of where your expenses need to go into the future there. If we look at the road fund, you guys began the year with a fund balance of $760,000. You had revenues of $2,180,000, expenses of $2,040,000, and you ended the year with a fund balance of $900,000, an increase of just under $140,000. Your available cash in the road fund was $717,000, and that was actually up $344,000 year over year. So it's quite a bit of an increase in available cash. Mostly it was a function of you had a lot of outstanding warrants payable in the prior year. So your cash balance is relatively the same. If you look at your revenue and expenses, you can see fiscal year 18, both revenue and expenses were higher than in 17. Primarily, your revenues were increased due to the SRS money, your federal forest money came in. You got $40,000 last year. You didn't have that the year before. And you guys qualified for the LSI grant, which was $494,000. So that's primarily the difference in your revenue for last year. On the expense side, again, your total expenses were up about $360,000 year over year. Primarily, it had to do with the LSI grant expenses. It had $494,000 related to the LTAC grant that you guys received. If you look at your road funds ending fund balance, your fund balance has actually increased about $665,000 since the end of fiscal year 12, and you're currently sitting just above that 5-month line at 5.2 months worth of expenditures in your fund balance. This is a great spot for the road fund to be. Obviously, road, you never know when you're going to get another big road expense that pops up, but the trend has been you've been just above that line the last 3 years, so I think that puts you guys in a pretty good spot for the road fund. Overall, I think it was a good year for the county. All of your general, your justice, and your road fund are all at the 2-month minimum or better. So I think you guys should just continue to work in that direction. And I think that you guys are doing a good job of managing the finances. So that's what I got for you today.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
2 years ago, you were saying we were not very good shape.
Yeah, all your funds have come around. I mean, that's just a function of you guys making some hard decisions when it comes to budgeting, and it's nice to see you guys in a good spot where you're not in a cash crunch, and your funds are right in that spot where it doesn't look like you have too much in any of your funds. You're just maintaining that healthy fund balance.
6 weeks supply of cash on your graphs here. We were way under the 2-month requirement for a while.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that progression over a few years and get back into that range.
Is there anything you think we should change?
No, I think that, I mean, you're at your max levy rate when it comes to your current expense and justice. So that's the ones where if you have an increase in your expenses, it's the hardest time because you can't go levy more money.
Yeah.
Right, so that's where you have some options when it comes to your sales tax and your state revenue sharing, where that's really what you have available to make a transfer. So I think watching where those expenditures are really is important, simply because you can't adjust your overall levy rate and bring any more money into those funds. So
The state was trying to change that revenue sharing formula. I'm not sure what they did on that.
yeah, as far as I know, they haven't officially made any changes there. But yeah, you never know when all those things start. Someone's always a loser and someone's always a winner when they start changing formula. That's just the end up how it ends up being. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
you. Talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.
Tony, I need your time until 3:30. There's nothing to do with this.
Yes.
I wanna get
Okay.
good for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready for us?
No, but come on in.
Yes.
Or do you need it for your?
Red's ready for us.
No.
I'm thinking red line with DEP.
Dan, I'll give you my copy.
Hi, Dan.
Good morning.
And look on page, you can look on the next.
Shoot. Not Linda.
And now I'm gonna send it down.
Well, it's been a while since we've been here, so we figured we'd give you an update. We appreciate the designation of a couple of folks to review projects. Where we're at is we did get 44 project proposals from around the basin, mostly not from this county, mostly from Shoshone and some from Cooley County. Mix of things, some I think will make the grade, a bunch will make the grade, I think there may be a few that won't fit the plan. So we're kind of in a review process on that right now.
What we did, do you remember what Chip's talking about? So we went out for a solicitation of project ideas for about a 6-week period earlier this spring, and so anybody could submit project ideas, and so.
Yeah, it was an open solicitation that we went out with. And that kind of got delayed a little bit when the federal government shut down. That's behind us. So, those came in, what, March
20th.
March 20th. Yeah, so we're just getting an opportunity to look through them. I don't know if, I guess we were here to see if you had questions or thoughts or anything on what some of those might be. I think we have maybe 4 that might partly include Benoit County. Maybe a couple on out of the Coeur d'Alene tribe on the reservation. There's a
Which projects you have in Benoit County?
So the tribe's got, we call it Environmental Programs Office for Hangman Creek. And Dave, if you feel free to chime in, where'd you go?
I'm here.
Okay. Feel free to chime in. I have not had a chance to review all of these yet. They have a media outreach program proposal, which is basin-wide, with a focus on the reservation, which of course includes both Benoit and Kootenai counties. The Fish and Wildlife Service.
St. Joe.
Oh, okay, we have bank stabilization just up the river here on the St. Joe, between here and Collier, that's in the county. And then the Fish and Wildlife Service had a proposal to do a bull trout study, which would include Benoit, Shoshone counties. The rest are, we had several proposals from Shoshone County, mostly culvert replacements where we can get fish passage, they can get their culverts upgraded, that kind of thing. City of Coeur d'Alene put in for a very large grant for a park on the old Alice Mill site on the Spokane River. Mostly it's, there's a few that are, say a couple, 3 that are easements further up the Coeur d'Alene Valley, up in Kootenai County part of the lower basin. Most of them are on the ground type things. There's a few that are study proposals, which we're gonna have to look and see if we really need that information or not. And, our focus is really on putting money on the ground to benefit Fish and Wildlife and people's access to those.
Sediment really isn't it?
What's that?
Sediment control,
Well,
if you can.
so the bank stabilization will meet that. So there's kind of this, there's still this divergence between the remediation, cleanup, and what we can do to benefit fish and wildlife in the form of restoration, which can include sediment control. So,
I didn't realize you were soliciting applications. January, February is kind of a busy month with snow and everything.
huh,
And,
so we put that out.
are we making more?
Yeah, we'll do it, yeah, we anticipate it will be at least an annual thing initially.
Okay.
We weren't really sure what to even
Chip,
expect.
on the part from the reservation down,
Mhm.
don't they have a grant for riprap on that, the tribe, or do you know?
They, not through this process. They-
No, I'm not talking about
Yeah.
this project, I'm talking about their grant through that.
They might through a Vista or something.
It is true of it.
Through a Vista? Yeah, I'm not sure what they've got for stabilization down in that Vanuatu-Chacolet area.
I was gonna put a grant,
Confluence.
apply for a grant. The county's got a little bit of land right down here by the confluence of the St. Mary's and St. Joe Rivers. And I wanted to see if we could improve the access to that. That's what I was gonna.
Yeah, well,
That's-
so,
That's what I was gonna. apply.
yeah, I was thinking we had sent, and I realize it's a busy time of year, especially when you start getting into snow removal and stuff, but, I was thinking we had sent letters to the,
I'm sure you
Folks.
did, I'm sure I just.
yeah, we tried to get the word out, and we got, like I said, I wasn't sure we'd get 10, we got 44, so.
Yeah.
Some folks were hearing about it. It was interesting, we did a, open house, was that last summer here?
I think it was in July, August,
Yeah.
when we had one at the fire station down.
Yeah,
down the
and
road.
the interesting thing with that was the only folks that showed up were consultants looking for work, so. I mean, literally, that was who showed up for that one, and that's fine, I guess. I think the word got out reasonably well, and you know, we can, if you have a project idea for the county that would benefit both of us, like we talked about in the past, we're interested in finding those common ground projects where it meets the plan and meets needs, and see where we get to. But we did do a round of what we called out of the gate projects, that we just took stuff from the trustees that we knew would fit, and we had a fair bit of wrangle, but the tribe will be doing a willow nursery down by Hepton Lake. They got that fenced off, and we drove by that this morning, and see what they have fenced off. And they've got some other project they're doing on Hepton Lake.
Who literally has the jurisdiction over that? You guys or them,
Over the money or over the place?
over the project?
So, it's joint jurisdiction on the project. So the trustee council is us, state of Idaho, which Dan and I are the two agencies involved with that. The Coeur d'Alene Tribe, Department of Interior through both BLM and the Fish and Wildlife Service, and then Ag through the Forest Service. Those are the four trustees.
So any project that gets funded, one of the trustees has to be a sponsor. And the sponsor's basically the fiscal mechanism in which money comes from the Department of Interior, which is the centralized bank account for all those settlement monies. And then, so if you guys had applied for a project and we were awarded that, it would probably be either Chip or I would be the sponsor for that, and we would develop an agreement between the agency and the county to say, you know, here's how you would do that work and here's how the money would transfer.
The jurisdiction on the decision-making that approves the project is the 4 trustees, and while we strive to find consensus, full consensus, and that everybody agrees, the mechanism is set up that a 3 out of 4 will carry a project. So the decision-making, we're part of the decision-making body, we're 1/4 of it. The 2 of
There's
us.
4 of you then.
Yes.
Right.
Of which Dan and I make up half of 1 each. So,
So you're 1 vote or 2 vote?
One vote.
we're combined, we're 1 vote.
So there's Forest Service, you guys, Tribe,
And Interior.
Fish and Wildlife Service.
Secretary, Interior.
So, and there's been a fair bit of wrangling over the initial set of proposals by the trustees, and then we have not had our sit down to go through these. Our technical folks, of which Dave is the Fish and Game rep, Kais is the DEQ rep, and then the others also have reps on that. They've kind of done a preliminary screening of those. But before we go forward with our recommendation on a decision on any one of these, that's where we need to get together with the county reps. And we had a meeting 2 weeks ago. And unfortunately, the only one that made it was
Mike Fitzgerald.
Mike Fitzgerald, yeah, from Shoshone. But we'll try and schedule another one. Get together, and I saw that you replaced Pam with Peg Carver, is that right? Yeah, and Dean's still on that, so now that we have these,
So we still need to, we've got Cooney County, right? We've got
Yeah,
Cooney
we do.
County, right, so again, our plan is at least to, before Chip and I, you know, come up with a final ranking of these, would be meet with that advisory group, get their input on the projects, have them an opportunity to review the projects and get, you know, that feedback through those folks representing the 3 counties, say, hey, these are good ones, or, you know,
they're
not so
they're
good.
non-starters, or they're no-brainers, or there's something in between. And
But we're using them as advice to Chip and I, to then us make our recommendations for, you know, we go forward with a thumbs up, thumbs down. We'll probably, you know, look at, you know, those projects into categories of projects that are good, and we'll try to do soon, projects that are, you know, need a little bit more work, and we'll work with those folks to get them into a better place, and then other projects that maybe not so good, or maybe that they're projects that are a couple years out, not time critical.
Any projects on the Coeur d'Alene River?
yeah, there's, you mean on the main stem below the confluence, or up?
Below the
facing?
Rose Lake Bridge.
Trying to think what we had on the lower river. We had our Black Lake project, which is one of our out-of-the-gate projects, and we need to line that up with some EPA work. And so that's the parcel that we sold that ground to IDL, and we picked up that ranch at Black Lake. And then we've got Black Rock Slough, which is a little bit upriver, and that's just a water control device project to maintain water levels at desirable levels. And then there were, I want to say, 3 easements, Dave?
2 easements already approved, and 1 that's in this current batch.
Yeah. And those are with Kootenai County landowners.
Through Fish and Wildlife Service.
Yeah. So that's kind of the extent of that.
That is sad that Coeur d'Alene River, the bank stabilization. And, you know, we fight that in the Coeur d'Alene Basin.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to get EPA to move, you know, get going on the lower basin and get
Yeah.
some momentum there on.
We're well aware of that, ain't we?
Right, what they're
But then
trying
we're not very successful.
Not
You know,
yet.
when you talk about dredging the river, which blows your mind,
Gotta find a place to put that. Pull it out of there, right?
Yeah, that's a hard one to get your head around, actually.
Where's it coming from? Is it the bank? They say it's not. I say it is. So, you know, we take.
Combination of,
Look at the Rose Lake, the project we put on the Rose Lake Bridge. It's there. You can't even hardly tell it's there now. It's all rusted. Willows, and can't seem to get them can't seem to want to move on down the river. I don't understand it.
So they are kind of, EPA is kind of, at least my understanding, from our conversations with them, because in order for us to move forward with, say, our Black Lake restoration, we need to get EPA on board with that, because we may have some remediation responsibilities that go along with that. My understanding is they are just now moving into that, but not as fast as I guess we would like, or you would like, so. You know, I guess we can do what we can do as far as prodding them. I think that actually the Black Lake Ranch is one they look at as a good way to get going, so that maybe that'll generate some momentum.
and we've told you too about our Avista money. The state has Avista monies to do erosion control. And Avista has been always hesitant to do anything up the Colerain River because they want to avoid any kind of super fund responsibility. They pay for something, they don't want to have any kind of super fund liability.
When you say this,
How would that be a liability? That should take some of the liability off, I would think.
They are just super hesitant to put a shovel in the ground on the Colerain River.
now that this one you're talking about, Dan, the this one you're talking about, erosion control, is that from relicensing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dam?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so they have an annual obligation of dollars that they put into a pot, and that grows by, gross domestic, has a percentage increase every year that they adjusted for, so it started out at $75,000 a year, now it's about $84,000 a year.
Well, it's not a real big.
It's not real big, the money can roll over for a period of time, so if you don't spend it this year, you can.
Accumulates, you can accumulate it for 5 years,
Yeah.
but it's a 50-year obligation, so, over time, that incremental percent GDP increase will continue to grow.
But you do have to find
Projects
projects that,
with willing landowners saying, we want to do this.
and there's not a lot of money, you're right, there's not a lot of money available at any one time.
Okay.
I would add in that Avista is softening up on that a little bit. I received 2 different proposal fundings last month, and they've got a kind of a form letter that their attorneys have written up to isolate them from that, so they're beginning to be more willing to work in the lower basin just in this last year.
Some of that is their management has changed over, I think, so we've seen a little bit of personnel changeover in there. That's one of our goals, is to work through that hesitation for them to do work on Colerain River and see if we can overcome that.
Where do you see on the Coeur d'Alene Basin, where we're at there? You know, we talk about the lower basin, but are they waiting for us to die off so they don't have to do it down there, or what are they doing? I mean, seriously, that is a problem, and nobody wants to address that.
Yeah,
And where they address it, it works. Of
yeah.
course, the tribe doesn't like rip-rapping, and, there's rip-rapping and then there's rip-rapping. And what I've seen, what we've done has been very successful, but I don't know.
It does sound like some of those projects, like the one near Black Rock Slough, where the veg got implanted in, and that's providing wildlife habitat and stability, which I think is what, when we're reviewing those kinds of projects, that's what we're looking for. And I know there have been multiple other iterations of ways to do that. I think everybody recognizes that bank erosion is a serious problem. It's getting momentum to do.
So we worked with, I think, 8 landowners up by the Shadowy St. Joe on the south side of the river, and did a bank stabilization project this past fall. And so that,
When you look at how much they've done on the Joe, they've done a lot on the Joe,
Yeah,
but they're not doing any, and they're saying the lake's worse than it's ever been, which I don't believe. But they don't wanna deal with that on the Coeur d'Alene River, and the Coeur d'Alene River is the problem.
yeah,
And,
getting EPA to engage has been, I think, an ongoing challenge, keeping them engaged, hold their feet to the fire. We've been trying to talk to them about the lake since November, and can't get them to get on the phone and have a
No.
conversation.
no, I agree.
So, but again, we want to continue with our effort to get these local projects moving along, use representatives from the counties to help
Everything helps.
give us guidance. And again, we want to make sure, as we move forward with these projects, that you guys use them as a way to say, hey, these are projects that are either in conflict with what the county wants to do or not, so that we're not supporting something that you guys are totally
Yeah.
opposed to. We don't want to get in that kind of a,
we did get 4 proposals, and Dave, maybe you've looked at them. I haven't gotten to them yet. I'm about halfway through these from Jamie Sturgis, our river corridor projects. I think the thing we're gonna have to figure out is where the line is between remediation and restoration. We can't spend the money on remediation, but we can partner up to make a project go that will benefit both remediation and restoration if we can get the EPA to roll along on that. So
Okay,
that's where things are at.
we'll keep pushing.
we've got another meeting organized with Peg and Dean and Mike Fitzgerald and I think Jamie Sturgis and Rusty Shepherd with Virginia County.
Okay,
And then our plan is to give them a copy of all the stuff that we've received and have them review that. Have an opportunity to have some questions, because we're trying to move the time frame along, that we go through and get a selection, identify which projects we want to fund, and then, move that after along, so that.
And we're still kind of figuring out how to make this public process be as efficient as possible. So we're learning as we go right now. Hopefully this works. And
might get easier.
yeah, but the thing, even projects that we get this spring, most of them are not gonna be able to start until next spring. By the time you get through permitting and funding and construction seasons, there are some we can probably start this fall. So hopefully we can get going, but it's a time thing is.
Even if we were to approve it tomorrow, then if, a state agency is the sponsor, then we have to work up basically
Budget.
a contractual agreement
Yeah.
between us to be able to pass money through.
And we have to get spending authority to do that from the legislature, so we have other hoops we jump through. I think we have a process we're getting set up to make that a little more streamlined, because there are times you can go for spending authority and you just went the wrong day. And there are times when, if you have it set up and it's a streamlined process, that there's an understanding that, yeah, this is a state invested, something we're invested in as a state. If we don't do it, somebody else is gonna wind up taking the money someplace else.
Yeah. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
you bet, thanks for having us.
So you have a busy schedule today.
See ya.
Yeah, if you have questions, let us know.
We will.
Jack, take care of yourself.
You too.
All right.
Nice to meet you. See you at the next
Careful when you shake it.
call.
Good to see you again.
County assessor.
Sound like they're almost beating their
Hi,
head
it's
against
Dee
the
Dee.
wall.
Is Donna come
Yeah,
over? Come back over?
you know, they go after the foo-foo
Oh, okay.
project.
Okay.
No bagel?
Foo-foo, they don't get anything done. No way they shouldn't be working on that lower end, that Coeur d'Alene, they got money. That Coeur d'Alene basin's got more money than, and they're not doing it.
He's $100-some million bucks they got to do, you know.
And you can see where we put it in, and you can look and it washed back 20 feet more off the river banks than where we done them projects.
Donna's on. Hi, it's Stevie. Are you ready? Oh, yeah, that's fine, thanks. Donna was on the phone and Sarah can come over as well as soon as Dawn gets off the phone. So.
Why don't you call Boundary County and ask them? And then
Yeah.
on the card, let me know right away. See if they charge them to do it, or if they do it for the
Well, if somebody comes in and finds it for them, at least that was the way it was a few years ago, years or so ago. That's what I'm doing. I'll do that. Maybe I'll call, Secretary of State sometime. Good. You're supposed to have a comment sometime. If I go down there.
Yeah, I have one for Jack to sign. It was on the agenda, but I said to not, so it's already approved.
Good morning.
So the state tax commission was here, and when they did our UAT web conversion from our AS400 to our new system, our older parcels are not converting very well, and plus it's slowing down the system. So we have roughly, I would say 150 parcels that have not been put up for sale. I don't know what you guys think about just doing, if we're going to go ahead and put those 3 up that have been requested so far. Go ahead and put these others.
the old category or the?
They're under the old category, or the old code area, not category. And so that would just put them out there, and then if somebody wishes to purchase them at that time, then they can come and talk to you guys. Make an offer, and you guys can either approve it or deny it. It has nothing to do. Once they're put up for sale, if they don't sell at the public auction, then they just sit there.
They're negotiable.
Right.
So these ones you talked about are negotiable? but they're not-
Yes. Under the old law, it states that you can put the property up for the market value of the property. So, what do you guys think about that?
Were those put up for auction one time before?
No, they have never been put up for auction.
So they have to be put up for auction first?
Yes. And then if they don't sell at the auction, then they can sit there, but we don't ever have to put them up for another auction again. What would happen is they would come in and submit a letter to you guys for an offer for the piece of property, and then you guys would either have to approve it or deny it. And you guys actually set the prices on the properties too when they go up for sale.
Didn't you kind of do that with a bunch of parcels years ago?
We did that in 2005.
Yeah.
Probably ought to do it.
Okay,
What was that with? But these haven't been put up for sale.
correct. So
Let's
we
just
at
look at
least
the
have to
bad.
get them out there so that we wouldn't have to try and figure out, has this been put up, and go through the files. It would actually be easier if we did put them all up for sale, and then they'd all be treated the same from here on out.
Okay.
The second thing that they wanted me to talk to you guys about is we have some of those parcels that we've got for tax deed. The taxes are back to, some of them are 1988. What we would suggest, working with the state tax commission, is cancel anything for right now from 2010 back to clean up the records. Those taxing districts have already written off that bad debt that they have not collected. But then when we go to sell the property, then we can make some kind of resolution if you guys wanted, where we would take so much of the dollars and split it with the current taxing districts at the current levy. What do you guys think of that?
Back in 2010,
2010 back to 1988.
pay taxes off.
Yeah, cancel those off, clean up the books, and then it would speed up our system a little bit. Because right now what it is the system, when we go to run a report, it goes through every parcel every year. And so it's just, it has to go back all the way to 1988 to make sure that the report is pulling what it needs to. So it would speed up our system tremendously.
You didn't try to put those parcels up for auction.
Yeah, we still would put those parcels up for auction. This is the second part that I would ask that we go ahead and cancel. We can wait and see if anything sells at the auction first if you guys want to do that. I mean, if we try and put them up towards the end of this year, you know, what's another 6 months having these out there? But it would be nice if, you know, they didn't sell it, we'd go ahead and look at canceling those backyards, but then still give so much to the taxing districts when it comes to point of sale.
And we put them up for auction, there'd be a minimum price on that.
Right. It doesn't have to sell for back taxes. And that's why a lot of those parcels from 2005 did not sell.
And cancel them from 2010 on back.
Mm-hmm.
Is
That still leaves 19 years of taxes out on the system.
9 years.
So are you guys okay with going ahead and
We're
cancel?
all right with that too.
That would be 9 years of tax, not 19.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant, sorry.
Yeah.
Commissioners, I think in order to document the process though, and Sarah, we probably would want to do some type of resolution identifying those specific parcels and the amounts that are going to be canceled. I think in concept, what you're doing today is directing, you know, county officials to go ahead and get it set up for that. Couldn't just,
For those particular parcels you're talking about?
yeah. I think you know, every single parcel is a separate in-rem event with different owners, different notices, different amounts, and just, you just need to identify.
And I have one report that I brought over that has 37 parcels on it that pulled right away off the new system. And if you guys want to look at it, you can't, the last page that is on here, it doesn't, because the UAD Web, our new system, it doesn't go past 2004.
Yeah.
So you're gonna see taxes on here back to 1988. And it's front and back. So I don't know if we want to start with these parcels and then move forward. I'll look at that drawing.
You know, it'd take quite a while to look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Figure it out.
But that's what how it pulls every single parcel. And then we took this probably in 2015. Or 2005 is when we took this one. And then it just keeps going forward. I only ran it from 2015 back. And there's 37 on that or on that report there.
What you're trying to do is clean up the back tax law we have,
Mm-hmm.
which is a good idea.
Okay. So I will work with Donna and try to get all the parcels that we need to, and maybe get a report with maybe some maps. If we did would that be possible? It will take some time, especially in this new
Yeah.
system. It's way different than what we've been working with before.
So you have 3 in mind that you want to start with right now?
37.
37.
I thought you said 3.
Well, I
Well,
think
the
there was
three,
3
yeah,
that,
there's 3 that you guys have already approved.
like, people have come in with submitted a request letter that I bring to you guys
Right.
every once in a while, wanting those to go up for auction.
In
So
like
we
the
have
last
3 right now.
6 years, or 6 months they've been,
Probably,
yeah. So you guys approved those individually with the letters that have come in, but if I'm gonna do that sale, I'd like to add in
Yeah,
everything.
that's what prompted
In
this.
August.
Are you thinking in August?
I don't wanna hold it at the same time as our tax deed auction this year, due to the fact that last time that we did that, and we had one parcel that was a market value and not back taxes, they weren't so nice to me out there. So we're going to hold a different date. It can be in
That's what you
August.
get paid the big bucks for.
Nice. We
It's
can
good
still
to keep
do
them
it
separate.
in August, but I wouldn't wanna do it on the same day.
Yeah, right. Okay,
Well,
Okay.
if you did everything, you're looking at how many some parcels? Yeah, so it takes a little bit of
And probably, and I was gonna talk to Nancy's office about this, like, if we went through and we listed everything, and if people were specifically interested in a certain parcel, to jump around in the auction, like, we're going to skip parcel 1 through 20, we're going to auction 21, you know, which ones are people interested in, because a lot of the people aren't gonna be interested in any of them.
okay.
Yeah, commissioners, I do think, we've had a couple of meetings with your county prosecutor too, about these tax deed sales, the differences in the two, you know, the old law, the new law, trying to differentiate. And so I think this is great, also in view of some other property we're looking at cleaning up for sale. So I think we'll just make a concerted effort to work with Sarah and Donna. Drafting a resolution is the easy piece. I mean, it's pulling together and making sure that the right sale applies to the right category of land and that the notices are given if needed.
Do we need to do a resolution since Idaho code allows us to go ahead and auction off all these tax deed parcels anyway?
Well, I think that what I first heard was kind of a blanket tax cancellation of taxes from 1988 to 2010. That's the resolution I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I mean, it's always a good idea to document an official decision or the fixing of a price, you know, in the minutes, in the record, in a resolution is the most organized way to do it.
Okay.
So I think that's probably the best way to do it if you're gonna do a big blanket sale of these. But tax cancellation, I think definitely would require some formality.
Would any of these parcels also have like an LID lien on them too, or?
No, because those ones were all Anderson Heights and they've all been put up for sale.
Okay.
So these ones would not have any of those. And we have all the LIDs in the county. We paid off all those already. And so there's no additional liens that are out there.
Okay.
I have something I'd like to add. When you put these up, I know you can do it at market value, but I would actually recommend going below market value just to sell them and get them on the tax rolls. I mean, I can go through and figure out what market value would be, but I'm not saying
Your
some for
market
pennies
value
on the
is supposed
dollars,
to be
but
lower than market value.
yeah, 74% right now.
So
Yeah, and that's true.
you're kind of,
And we can use that, I guess, when I provide numbers to Sarah, because it's going up, and I haven't talked to you yet about that, but if you want 2018 numbers or 2019 numbers.
I would say 2019 because we're gonna have the auction in 19 and the new levies will be
Okay.
pretty close to being set at that time.
So
And we'd be halfway through the year.
I'm close to getting 2019 values, I'm not quite there yet.
Okay. There was something I was thinking when you said that. I forgot. Okay. So I will work on that then, hopefully have it to you within a month.
thank you.
Yep.
Put those in a spreadsheet.
Yeah. And I have the state phone and other report for us too. That might be more helpful.
Okay. Ready for me? Oh, boy.
You're gonna tell us all the good news from the CFT meeting, aren't you?
I don't have anything good, absolutely nothing. Actually, Jack went to the CFTM meeting and I don't know, I think putting a date certain on being able to make changes is gonna be maybe a deal breaker.
Well, they need to get over there,
So-
them other companies need to get over there and
I don't think they'll be able to do it in a year. I don't know. But that's the big hangup. The rest of it, looking at, like, they got rid of the idea of one size fits all.
That's good.
That's good. The formula that has been in place has not worked well. And so what?
for who?
Well, for anybody, I mean, it's been kinda wonky, but what they agreed to was to use,
So what's the sticker on that? Tell me,
just not being able to make any changes for a year, you know, so it's like, so you've got a year to make changes and then you can't change anything after that year's up. Well, a year's not very long. Especially when you're talking going out in the timber because you really only have a few months.
but how much of that do they really need to go out?
I don't know. Theirs was all a guess to begin with, so that's part of their problem. They didn't have. But I mean, some of the other counties too are going, whoa, wait a minute. And even for me, Jack, the way I read that, so if it's never been designated before, then I'm gonna have to hire a forester to go out and to do it. Because I'll have to go back to what was in there and not use my total table. So it's really.
In the county, every forester in the state's gonna be doing the same thing the same year, and when the year's up, you can't do anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if it was a longer window, I think it would fly, but I think if keeping it at a year, I
So
think you're
what
gonna
keeps
get
us
some
from extending
resistance.
it?
Nothing, I think put a 2 or 3 year window on
Well,
it,
we-
you know. I keep it short,
What, the
But I
rea-
think
the
the
reason
year
they
is
put
what's
it-
the problem.
The reason they put a year on that was the fact that they wanted them people to move.
right,
If you give them 2 years and they'll go to the end of the 2 years and then there they'll be.
Yeah.
They wanted them to move on that. I think we leave that thing intact and force them, and if we get close, extend it.
yeah. So I think that was really the only hang up. I didn't have any problems with it, and I think the rate was adjusted by the stumpage value, you know, so it'll go up and down accordingly, which is perfect. I think it'll be
I
good.
think we see if.
And that
we
was
need
the
to
only,
get
and I don't
them
care
to-
about the 1 year, cause I'm not, we're
No,
good,
they
but-
don't, but if they can't meet it, then give it a 6 months extension or something. But if you give them, the more time you give them,
And that's
you know
true.
what we're dealing with.
I do. So, but that seemed to be the only hang up with the, you know,
But I'm gonna bite them guys, cause I'm gonna call them, tell them, get off their duff and get over there. The ones that are not over there.
yeah. Stimson jumped right on it.
I know they did,
They were really good. But
I
I
know they did.
think they're the only ones.
But you got the ones that's got all the timber.
That, you know, if that's what they want, then they need to do it. Computers, so I know Sarah was talking to you about some hangups with the new program. So our computers are 2011, 2012. And they were set up for the old DOS system and, you know, they don't have a lot of working memory and stuff. And so now with the new program, we're having a lot of delay and sometimes things getting locked up. You can't get into 2 programs at the same time. So I talked with Matt a little bit about what we need, because I know we need to do something. And we just talked some rough numbers, and anywhere between 10 and 14,000. I've got 7 workstations that have to be replaced. I don't have that much in my budget. I can squeeze, I think, 3, and that's gonna come out of training dollars, because we're gonna be doing a lot of that online this year. 1, I just can't be gone for a week like we normally are, and that's a good place to save money. The online training isn't as good, but it'll work. Because without the travel and stuff, that's a big expense.
We okay?
I think I can find it, and
if not my current expense general budget, because I have some computer funds set aside there, then I have our general reserve as well.
Okay.
I hate to spring it, I really didn't think about that being a problem.
Unworkable just to do 3 though, wouldn't it be?
It is, I mean, we need
Yeah.
all of them, they're all, you know, the public one, we can use one of ours that we have now up there because it doesn't run as much stuff. And I never have replaced it in the eight years I've been here, but, yeah, it's very frustrating when you can't do your job, you know, because it just, the way it runs. The compliance. So I did, and you're right, so the state said we're out. I wanted to share with you the chart though, because it really kind of shows the sales. And here's a copy. So on the vacant land, we are assessing at 74 or 73.94, but basically 74% of markets. You can see all the sales are outside of or below the peak there, which would be at 100%. So that's where we're at. A lot of those sales were recreational river property. They're selling for double.
So,
Um,
does that affect every chunk of land in the county then?
It affects most of the county. So what I do on land is I look at geographical areas, and I've got things kind of broke down. Sometimes just a subdivision, sometimes a larger area. And I look at what's selling, you know, per acre, by the acres, and, you know, all of that. And then make changes. But a lot of, I mean, land everywhere is selling for more.
It is, yeah.
But it's anywhere from a 5% to I think 40 or 45%, I mean, increase, you know, on some of those river properties. So it just kind of, I can't say, oh, land's going up 20% or whatever it is. It's just, it's all over the place. I actually had a couple areas that went down a little bit, you know, when you start breaking it down by geographical area. But that was they were pretty high to begin with, but that's not very common. So it's creeping up. On my improved residential, I know it showed I passed, but I wanted to share, I passed at a 90.29%, so I just barely skinnied in there. And you can see there too, most of the sales are below the mark. Raising land will, you know, make a difference there. My concern is, you know, this year I passed, this is where I was 2 years ago. I just barely skinnied in at 92%, I think it was. Last year I was out of compliance. This year I'm barely in compliance. It's just, if things keep going up, we're gonna be dealing with this on a regular basis because I don't wanna just jack up values unnecessarily. So I can just say, oh, I'm in compliance, you know.
Right.
I just wanna try to keep things, I wanna keep in compliance, but I don't mind skinnying in, I guess is what my point is. I'm happy with 90%.
Well, when they're going up, you're always going to be trying to play catch up anyway.
It is, and we follow the market, and it depends on that, you know, in my mind, as much as it's gone up, at some point it's gotta burst, right?
Yeah, and then it's going to turn the other way, then.
And then it
it'll be
goes the other
above.
way, and then things go down,
Yeah.
but it just, you know, I'd like to have more gentle. Last year was just a spike, it was horrible, you know, and I don't wanna see that again. Hopefully we don't.
We don't either.
But things are still selling. You look at listings and you look at sales prices and it's still a hot market. A lot of retirees moving in. That seems to be our biggest.
Average
biggest
age
group.
of people moving to Cook County is 65.
What was that?
Yeah, I saw that the other day.
Yeah. So, and we're still getting houses being built. Oh my gosh. We just got 3 new house permits and it's still too wet to really do anything. I mean, once it dries out, we're gonna be slammed again. So, this year we're over on the west side, which will be a big area, so it's gonna be kind of tough to get it all together. We will. It's just, we're getting so much new stuff on top of, that we just, you know, a lot more than what we are used to.
That's good though.
It is, it is. I think that's all I had, unless you have something for me.
I'll keep you informed because I'm gonna lean on them people to get out this.
Good. And I think that'd make a big difference if they stepped up,
They gotta step up.
but,
That
so
was
far
the
they
deal we
haven't.
made that day,
Yeah.
and only one company has stepped up,
Mhm.
which is,
Unfortunate. And then I'll work with Sarah on this list.
okay,
So I'd like to see those on the, that'd be good.
okay.
Do we need to pay her for getting those computers, or we just gonna table it?
You haven't got there yet, have you? You ain't got it yet, have you?
No, but is it okay if I order?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want that in a
I mean,
motion?
we can put it in the motion or wait till you get them.
That's
They want
okay.
to do the,
How do you?
Actually, if you guys approve it now, then we won't have to wait till another
Okay.
meeting
Okay.
Yeah.
if Matt can get them
I'll
going.
approve that Donna gets some new computers.
Okay.
Second.
discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I know my people will appreciate it.
down the executive session,
Yep, back to
okay?